can be implemented or can be applicable in our domestic law. And the second one is direct invocability. It means that how private actors can invoke all the measures before the court in Indonesia. All these measures.
So 48 measures in your presentation. So many.
Sorry?
Yeah, never mind. Okay. So
how many slides you mean?
Yeah, 48 measures, right?
I think I provide only probably 15 slides. Yes. I don't have to bring my own slide, right? I mean, the moderator will show it. I'm gonna just talk and then discuss it, right?
Okay. Thank you, Pak Ozi. I see Pak Widya and Bu Tias. Hello, good morning.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, good morning.
Hi. So glad that you can join us today. Widya as well. Thank you. I see Pak Doni is just coming. Hi, good morning, Pak Doni. Okay. So I think it's already 9 o'clock. I give the control to Brian as the coordinator to open the meeting. Please, Brian, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Bu Tunjung. Okay, maybe we can start now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, seniors and colleagues. Welcome to our inspirational talks today with Mr. Ozi Diva Arsya with the topic, the TFA and the role of DGCE to implement it. Firstly, I will appreciate our president of CEEC, Bu Tunjung Sri Rahayu, for her hard work to make this event can still held until now that we know these inspirational talks have reached the 10th series, and we hope it gonna be we can help this event for a long time in the future. So I would like to appreciate Bu Tunjung for her hard work. And this morning, I want to introduce the organizing committee for this morning event. For the moderator, Mas Galiseno from Directorate Kial, and the host of this Zoom meeting, Mr. Mas Didit Rahadi from Directorate PPS, and the public relation and the designer of the flyer is Acit from Directorate Kial. And let's start this event. I give the virtual floor to Mas Gali.
Thank you very much, Brian. So, so thank you very much for the honor of having me as the moderator. This is my first time, so yeah, kindly give some room for you guys to to memaklumi. So okay, let's start. Today's topic is actually very interesting. What we are going to talk about is the WTO TFA, or the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement. And the agreement itself is very interesting because it was actually agreed, if I may say, agreed in Bali. And yeah, so that is the process itself is very interesting. And due to the workplace itself, like we have the political strength upon the WTO TFA, some sort. And today we are going to have a very expert, if I may say. His name is Pak Auzi Diva Ersha, PhD. His educational background is his PhD is from University of Nottingham, pardon me, from United Kingdom in international trade law or slash WTO law. Very interesting. And his master degree is University of Amsterdam, Netherlands, Master of Laws. And his previous employment history was in 2007, 2019. He was a Secretariat of Staff of Secretariat of Director General of Customs and Excise, and now currently he is the head section of compliance and control function in Batam. So I think we are going to have a really, really interesting discussion. I see also many of the expertise among the participants. I think we are going to have a very, very interesting discussion. And yeah, so without further ado, I think I will let Pak Ozzy to deliver his presentation. And probably, if I may ask, is it possible for us to have the questions in between the presentation, or we can wait until the question and answer section? Pak Ozzy.
Thank you, Mr. Gali. I think I don't know. I prefer to have the Q&A at the end of the session. So
right.
I mean, we can focus on the slide, and then
right.
and then you can ask many questions as you like.
Yes, that will be fine. So again, please, Fauzi, to deliver your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gali, Mr. Tunjung, and Brian, and also Didit as the CC organizer, and to all the participants. Good morning, all, and hopefully we are doing fine so far during this pandemic time and during this difficult time. So hopefully keep good health, and hopefully we can get through this during this pandemic time. And thank you very much. Also, I saw there's Mr. Dicky on Zoom, and Mr. Tarto, and Mr. Bailey, and all the participants. Thank you very much. And today's session, I would like to give my presentation, and we're going to discuss about the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement and its implementation in Indonesia, specifically how the Directorate General of Customs and Excise, the role of Director General of Customs and Excise to implement it. So probably we can show my slides. Okay. Okay, this is title. You can see that. And here, I would like to start with the big perspective here, with the big picture here. You can see for the setting, international trade is very complex at the border, particularly both in the exporting country and importing country. It involves many institutions and organizations, and also it includes customers as well. As you can see there, the port operator and also the freight forwarder, agent, exporter, like a bank, and inspection agencies and licensing authorities, for example, like from Ministry of Trade and other ministries. And as you understand that when private actors wants to import some good, they must fulfill all the licensing right and all the permit. That's why, as the background, you can see international trade is very complex. There are a lot of obligation and all the necessary situation that importer must fulfill for the clearance of their goods. And this background, of course, create some complexity and also duplication for all the required document that all the private actors need to be fulfilled. And that's the situation that I want to give all of you the big picture of this. Okay, the next slide. Here, actually, I quoted from one of the literature. And for example, like I said before, previously, at the border, it involved many agencies, many machinery of governments at the border, and for the authority as well. For example, when imported goods want to be clearance at the border of one importing country, there are a lot of private actors and also public actors as well. For example, like for a customer, there's a buyer and as well the consignee, there's a payer, or the importer wants to import some goods, and the seller, the one wants to buy that goods, and manufacturer, and etc. Here you can see from the slide. So for the intermediary, it involves as well like a bank and financial institution and customs broker and credit insurer, many of them involved at the border, of course. And that's the second big picture I want to show you. And of course, it will create, possibly, it will create many unnecessary trade costs at the border. And of course, when the goods get clearance at the border in one important country, possible that the price of that goods will get higher because these unnecessary trade costs at the border. And the next slide. And here, an example of international trade-related regulatory activity at the border. You can see, first, we all recognize that we have four functions, right? As a revenue collection, and then financial assistance and community protection, and the fourth one is trade facilitation. I forgot to mention in the beginning. I want to highlight the focus of our function, the last function. The third function, the trade facilitation agency. Some people say that a trade facilitator, but I prefer to say the trade facilitation agency because in literature, in international literature, you can read a lot of information about trade facilitation and the principle of trade facilitation that I'm going to show you in the next slide. So back to this slide again, you can see we have one of the function as a revenue collection. We collect customs duty and excise duties and other indirect taxes, and that's the main job that we have to do. We have to collect revenue for our national benefit. And the second one is about the safety and security. As you can see here, we also involved in this function. We must ensure that all the imported goods coming into our country should be clear from any prohibited goods, and then also restricted goods that will endanger our society, endanger our people. That's why we have to make sure that it don't happen. And then also the regulatory category as well, for example, like environment and health, like phytosanitary and veterinary and hygiene controls, health and safety measures, for sickness controls, and extra, that all these activities is done by other agency, for example, like a Ministry of what do you call it, trade, public, for example, as well, and another regulatory category. There's also like a consumer protection for product testing and labeling and conforming checks with marketing standards that we call it like, what do you call it? S&E, right? So all the imported goods must fulfill these requirements. For example, for electronics, they must meet like S&E. And last things about trade policy, you can see here example of activities that that is done at the border. For example, like the administration of quota, and yeah, we all understand and know that Ministry of Trade is really relevant to this activity. So they issue some quota and also like import licensing and etc. And okay, next slide. Here, another picture. I want to give you a whole picture from when some goods is importing to one importing country. There's a process. I took it from the UN CFAC supply chain model. It's a UN CFAC model. They give us a picture that when imported goods want to be imported to one country, there are three processes here. Of course, there's a buying process and shipping process and paying process. And you can see for the exporting, the private actors in the exporting country, they must provide all these documents. For example, like commercial procedures that they must fulfill. They must establish like a sales contract and order goods, and then next one probably requires payment, and then after that they will link to the transport system or transport procedures, and then they should establish a contract, establish transport contract, and also deliver that goods, and then of course give or transfer that goods to their port or exporting in their exporting country. And then the next one probably when that goods is shipped to the importing countries, is the last the second last thing that in the importing country that must do. There's some procedure that must be fulfilled as well. For example, when imported goods comes into the country, of course, the importer must obtain like a import or import licensing, and also must declare that goods to their customs, to the customs authority, and then provide it, and also must relate to the cargo declaration, etc. And then, of course, customs must process that declaration. And according to Article 53, if I'm not mistaken, of our customs law, we must consider other regulation provided by other agency. So that's the difficult time that we have. We are not the sole agency at the border who can release that goods, but some people don't really understand it. But when something happen at the border, and for example, there are a lot of costs, sometimes we are the scapegoat for that situation, because our people don't really understand that we must listen to regulation from other agency. And then after that, when imported goods really wants to be cleansed at the border, of course, importer must link the activity as well to the financial system, to the bank, and also to the insurer as well, probably. And then they must pay all the transportation, for example, like transportation goods, and also pay customs duty or import duties to the national state. And then after that, they also link to the port operator and to other agencies at the border. And we also understand that there are three phases of the three parts of the system at the border that we really know it. There's a pre-clearance and then custom clearance and post-custom clearance, right? So that's the situation that all the importer must get through all that goods at the border. And next slide. And here, after explaining all the station or the picture there, it's quite relevant. I'm going to talk later to our to our improvement at customs. And as you can see on the slide, that of course the process of moving goods from an importing country to importing country requires a great number of documents to be issued and checked at the border. That's the fact. That's the station that we are facing, either in one country or another country. So it happens worldwide, not only in Indonesia. So particularly in developing countries and least developed countries. So it really requires a great number of documents to be issued and checked at the border. And the second one, the problem is the process of obtaining mandatory approval documents, such as licenses and certificates and permits and everything, and standards and technical requirements from relevant government institution is also time consuming and bureaucratic. And I think this situation really gives a picture of our situation here. It really needs many documents. That's why we are trying to reduce all the documents and then to have that imported goods quite move at quite fast at the border to be clearance, and then it's really very time consuming and bureaucratic. And the next thing is excessive bureaucratic regulation and administrative barriers become burdensome for private actors. And here's the highlight: it causes unnecessary trade costs at the border. So it means that private actors must pay more for that goods to be cleansed at the border, and then sometimes it creates like like corruption and some kind of bribery to other government official at the border, and it happens a long time in Indonesia, I think. And here actually is the model. Trade facilitation is introduced to tackle all this situation. So basically, trade facilitation is a concept that many organizations, international organizations, try to introduce it to different countries, how to tackle all these problems. And when we can get this problem done, we can create trade efficiency at the border, and then we can minimize unnecessary trade costs. And of course, we can maximize trade efficiency at the border. And in return, of course, our society will get cheaper goods, and when the seller wants to sell it, because I think that's the purpose of this concept. Okay, and next slide. Here's the principle of trade facilitation from the teacher, and you can see the basic principles of trade facilitation. As you can see here, there are 4 principles that I think many international organization try to make it simple. I mean, agree on this principle, and there are four principles that we have. The first one is simplification. It means that when some imported goods at the border want to be clearance, all the procedures, all the rules must be simplified. And I mean, all the machinery of government at the border must simplify all the trade procedures. And so the clearance of goods at the border can be precisely timely, precise, and also all the benefit can be achieved by private actors and also for governments. And second one is harmonization. It means that when one regulation or one rules from one institution and other institution must be should be harmonized. I mean, there should be like a regulation that can comply each other. So there are no conflicting regulation or rules from among the government or organization at the border. So that's why we must create the situation where all the trade rules, all the procedure at the border harmonize among other agencies. And the third one is standardization. And also it's really important as well. we must ensure that all the all the procedure or everything at the border. I mean, for example, like a port code and everything should be standardized based on the international practice, for example, and then there's no conflicting each other among these standard. And the last thing is about modernization. Of course, when we want to implement or want to apply this principle, we must have like a good ICT, information communication and technology system. That's why so far we are trying to improve all our ICT equipment, all ICT system. For example, by introducing like electronic payment and also online submission and everything through single window. And now I think we are progressing on how to implement or to bring forward NLA, right, National Logistic Ecosystem, in the future. So it's by, of course, the good equipment for technology, for ICT. And here you can I just quote a perspective from one of the practitioners in trade facilitation, and he said that for better regulation, of course, we must have simpler rules and procedures, and we must avoid duplication, and we must create like a memorandum of understanding or MOU with other agency, because we cannot in the fact that we cooperate or we coordinate with other agencies to get release imported goods at the border, right? So we must have like a commitment among this agency. That's why we suggest that we must have like a memorandum of understanding for MOUs among these institutions. And also alignment of procedures and adherence to international convention, of course, based on international practice, and also trade consultation. We call it probably here we have implemented. We call it the client coordinator, right? So importer can discuss everything with our employees concerning their goods and how and all the procedure at the border, and also accommodation of business practices. And you can see here from the slide how many things for. And we also have our risk management and trade authorization and time release measures. For example, here we try to build or to create uh, like a study about time release measure, and it really is really beneficial for us because we can predict how I mean time of imported goods can be released at the border, and fair and consistent enforcement. Of course, we must consistently enforce was it the enforcement of prohibited and restricted goods at the border. We don't tolerate any like bribery or everything there. And then here's another things, information and communication technology. Here what we call it as modernization. So we invest a lot of money how we can build this technology better in the future. That's why we create, for example, like Indonesian single window. This one is practitioner suggests that it's also like a single window system and automation. We create electronic payment and everything there. So, and that's the sample. That's the example of a practitioner's observation of the trade facilitation principle in practice. And next slide. Uh, okay, and here another thing that took it from the international convention or international agreements, for example, provided by UNCFAC as well. And it says that international trade facilitation recommendation covers, of course, trade procedures and customs and regulatory bodies, and last thing there, provision for official control procedures applicable to import, export, and transit, including general arrangement and customs control, etc. You can read there, and provision relating to the movement of person. I mean here is not so relevant to our work because basically it relates. Oh, sorry, to the movement of a person. It means that probably for all the goods coming with the passenger probably, and also provision relating to payment procedures. You can see here we are trying to improve many things at the border through our organization. Of course, we we suggest all the private actors or importers submit their document through online to online submission, and also it will be better in the future if we can link the system of our national payment to the bank, so we can directly check whether importer probably have paid all the customs duty and import taxes, and also provision relating to the use of information and communication technologies. And like I said before, we need to invest more money to this system, and of course it will make it will create more benefit for private actors, of course, and also for government. And here, legal aspect of trade facilitation means that probably so we create more harmonized regulation, also that link to other institutions, so it will not conflict with with other regulation from machinery of governments at the border. And next slide. Okay, we have probably 10 minutes more. Yeah, here is just a quick look. Here you can see defining trade facilitation. There's a definition of trade facilitation you can see here. So from UNCFAC and OECD, they describe trade facilitation as like the system of rationalization, simplification, and standardization and harmonization of international commercial procedures among countries and associated information of flows, movement of goods from buyers to seller and make payment. Here's the important point here. They include make payment as one of the important things that all countries must fulfill, so it can create more simplified procedure, also movement of goods at the border. And another thing from the end, the UNTAD say that trade facilitation as a transparent and predictable environment for cross-border trade transaction based on simple and standardized customs procedures and practices, efficient documentation requirement, reliable cargo and transit operation, and arranged trade and transport. So, as I said before, of course, when we want to create a condition or situation at the border where all imported goods can be timely precise at the border, we need cooperation. We need some kind of cooperation with other agency from transport system, from transport operator, and also from financial system as well. Next slide. The other thing you can read it. So from the WTO itself said that trade facilitation is defined as the simplification and harmonization of international trade procedure, where trade procedure are the activities, practices, and formalities involved in collecting. Here, the keyword here, you can see collecting, presenting, communicating, and processing data required for the movement of goods in international trade. So there are 4 points here. You can the keyword here, the activity of collecting and presenting, and communicating and processing data. And another perspective is coming from the World Bank, and it's quite wide, it's quite broad as well for the definition of trade facilitation. And the World Bank says that if you want to make to create simplified procedure, I mean, to get all the imported goods at the border quicker to be released from the border, of course, it needs like improvement of port infrastructures and transport, roads, and removal of government and reduction of customs tariff, and even promotion. So it's quite broad definition of trade facilitation from the book from World Bank and from UNTAD and WTO. I categorize it as a quite narrow definition of trade facilitation, but from the World Bank, they provide definition quite broad because it also includes improvement of port infrastructure. And there are some research saying as well that, of course, we should create efficient port infrastructures and also efficient custom procedure at the border. And as I see that like I explained before, there are narrow perspective and also broad perspective, and the World Bank defines trade facilitation from broad perspective. And next slide. Here I can see here examples of benefit through facilitation, trade facilitation. That's the ideal thing that we want to achieve, of course, right? So we can significantly improve productivity and the reduction of costs through the electronic exchange of information and the development of core community systems as we want to achieve in the future, of course. And then can improve utilization of customers' resources through the use of risk-based controls. And another thing, improve utilization of examination equipment through cooperation with port stiff doors. So it means that in the future, hopefully, we can cooperate more with other agencies at the border, because now we establish like coordination or cooperation with, for example, from guarantee, so we can use their equipment. We call it a joint controls, joint equipment, and hopefully in the future we can expand it more uh, to, I mean, nationally at our national port. And of course, then improve intelligence gathering by customs officer by collaborating with traders and shipping lines, as we are expecting. I mean, as well in future, we can collect data, and then that data can be collected from shipping line, from financial institution, and then so it links together, and all data can be shared, and then it will create, of course, transparency and other things. And the last thing, of course, improve competitiveness when compared to trade port to port where transaction costs are greater. Okay, next slide. Okay, 10 minutes more. Now here's we go on to the main topic of our discussion. I explained before the concept of trade facilitation, and now there's one agreement, a very important agreement that concluded at the 9th WTO, like Mr. Kelly said before, in Bali, Indonesia. It's called the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, and in fact, it has been into force on 22nd February 2017, and it clarifies Article 5, Article 8, and Article 10 of GATT 1994. So Article 4 is about freedom of transit. Article 8 is about fee and fees and formalities connected to importation and exportation. And Article 10 is about publication and information on trade procedures. And the unique thing of the WTO trade facility agreement, this agreement introduces three categories. So there are three categories: category A, B, and C, and also it uses a SDG approach. It means that category A, when one country has ratified this agreement into their domestic law, as soon as this agreement enter into force, they must implement, or they must apply all the measure in the agreement. So for category B, it means that there's a grace period. There's a time for one country. So this agreement gives time for one country to implement all this measure in the agreement. So I think it provides 2 years for a grace period for the country to implement it. And for category C, it provides a capacity building and technical assistance for one country to implement the measure in the agreement. So Indonesia in this perspective. Indonesia has ratified this agreement into the domestic law under Law Number 17, year 2017, and as you can see in the next slide, I will show you. Also, Indonesia tells the WTO that they are obliged to implement 45 measures out of 48 measures under this agreement. So we only recognize 3 measures that will be implemented under category B. And self-tailor and SDT approach means that so because usually all the agreements under the WTO is basically based on the single undertaking. So it means that when one country ratify that agreement, they must implement that agreement in their domestic law, but not for the WTO trade Pacific agreement. So this agreement introduces self-tailor implementation for all the measures. Okay, next slide. Here, so you can see, you can read it there. For under category 4, for example, trade facilitation recommendation under category 4, sorry, under 5, under the WTO trade facilitation agreement. For example, one country must ensure that they accept commercial documents, invoice and transport documents, and then to set simple and clear procedure for identifying consignments. And another thing under Article 8, the WTO suggests that there should be like regulatory fees or not exceeded expenses, and then standardization and simplification of customs and trade documents, and coordinated intervention and convergence of regulatory controls. And here we just use it, the use of a single window concept, and then risk management techniques. And right now we are progressing on how to create Indonesian single risk management, right? In the future, hopefully we can implement it. And then common data models, like I said before, it should be linked among agency at the border, so we can share data and then collect data from agency or organization involved at the border. And also time guideline for border clearance. Here, example of a time release study. So that's one example there, and is an additional trade facilitation recommendation under Article 10. Yeah, here all private actors can access or can have like a information or publication of procedure and requirements. Of course, we provide it through our website. So all the information, we provide that information on our website. Will be beneficial if we provide it in 2 languages, Indonesia or English, or probably in French, example like that. So that's the requirement of the thing that WTO suggests, because it will covers in the area of transparency. So active provision of information is quite relevant to the first one. And then here, I think we suggest that we provide like advanced and binding rules. So the example of this, I think we are now also creating like a advanced ruling principle, and that's the thing that the WTO suggests under this agreement. And next slide. Here you can, I think you can read it. I just quoted all the information. There are actually 12 articles under the WTO TFA, So first one is about publication and availability of information. The second one is about the opportunity to comment information before entry into force and consultation. Here, I think that advanced ruling and procedures for appeal or review and other measures to enhance impartiality, non-discrimination, and transparency. And actually, it's one not Article 13, but Article 23, because from Article 13 to Article 22, it provision about the SDT approach. So when it comes to Article 23, it's about institutional arrangement. So this agreement suggests that we should have like a trade facilitation committee in one country. So the purpose of that committee, this committee can coordinate and can coordinate all the rules, all the rules provided by machinery of government at the border. But unfortunately, here we only have I think ad hoc committee, so it's not permanent. So in the future, hopefully, we can have like this committee where all the rules can be observed, and then if there's any conflicting rules, of course they will suggest a solution. Here, the customs cooperation as well is very important. In the future, all customs authority in the WTO member should make cooperation or with agreement to other custom authority from other countries. And yes, I think I like Article 8 about border agency cooperation. So, like I said before, we are now trying to make good cooperation with other agency. For example, we can use their equipment. We can make a joint control or joint inspection with other agency for one imported goods. So all the agency can have the same perspective how to tackle or to handle that imported goods. And a few 5 minutes more. Next slide. And here you can see all the measures. There are 48 measures. And like I said before, based on our law, I mean that law, we have ratified that agreement in our domestic law. We commit that we're gonna implement 45 measures of 48 measures. Here you can see there's a Article 1.1, like publication. We commit that we have implemented, and inquiry points, and also test procedures. And here you can see, but except there are 3 articles that we don't commit to implement it as soon as this agreement enter into force. The articles are advanced rulings and notification for enhanced controls or inspection, and last thing, risk management. I'm not sure why we put risk management under category B. Probably we are not ready yet to implement this article. We need this measure because we need more time to coordinate and to implement Indonesian single risk management, I think, but I'm not sure. Probably some of the audience or participant can explain it more. And next slide. Here, actually, here's the principle. As you can see here, the main purpose of the WTO trade facility agreement actually try to improve the speed and efficiency of border procedures and reducing trade costs and enhancing participation in the global value chains, initial trade today. And here the perspective of the WTFA is actually to reduce or minimize unnecessary trade costs that are burdensome for private actors and the, of course, business community when conducting trade transactions at the border. And yes, after gradually reducing qualitative barriers, tariff barriers, now we are facing non-tariff barriers. It's quite increasing recently, so that's why we want to reduce these non-tariff barriers in the future, so we can have like efficient border procedures and rules. And those regulating custom measures and their procedures have been viewed as the highest priority at the border. So actually, all the measures under the WTO are our job, right? Our customs work. So we are quite familiar with all those measures. So I think we bring it from a narrow perspective because it only this agreement only views the measure or the procedure under customs work. So I think we are really, as a customs officer, it's really important for us to understand and then to bring these measures quite forward in the future, so we can implement all these measures in our institution. And of course, in fact, when here the right side, you can see here's the problem that we want to reduce, to tackle it. So there are a lot of costs that may happen at the border and can take the form of hidden costs. For example, like additional fees for release and clearance of imported goods, and also like information and technology. Here's the direct cost and also indirect cost. You can read it here. And next slide. Here, here's the thing that I would like to discuss with all of you today. Let this slide on the picture, on the Zoom picture, and then you can discuss more about this topic. And I just put two questions actually. Like I said before, Indonesia has incorporated the WTFA into domestic law through law number 17, year 2017, dated the 22nd of November 2017, and deposited this was an instrument of ratification to WTO on 5th of December 2017. And notified 45 measures under category A and 3 measures under category B. Here's the questions. All these measures are surely customs work, and the General of Customs should take more important role in implementing the WTO measure in Asia. So I would like to raise a question about this and how we can implement it. And second one, awareness and application of efficient customs procedures is crucial to the movement of goods at the border. But also, we are facing another problem. The General of Customs and Excise must also consider other product agency procedures, in which those procedures are sometimes conflicted, overlapping, or redundant among each other. And how we can solve it, how we can sort it out in the future. Okay, that's all. My presentation for today. Hopefully, we can have can have a fruitful discussion, and I kindly request all the participants to discuss or to ask questions. It's a free discussion, it's open discussion, so you can ask a lot of questions if you like. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pa Ozi, for your comprehensive presentation. I think if I may try to add some comments or probably a conclusion as well.
Yes.
I think the involvement of other government agencies is actually really important in movement of in the movement of goods in borders,
Yes.
and trade facilitation is actually needed to reduce costs, and also the WTO TFA is trying to encourage harmonized implementation among WTO member countries and the other agencies as well in each countries.
That's correct.
Probably, yeah. So yeah, try to conclude. Probably WTFA is not only about customs, but however, how do we customs should implement the agreement? If I may rephrase your question again.
Mm.
Yeah. So that is probably some of my comments for your comprehensive presentation. So despite the heavy topic and yeah, probably I would like to invite all of the participants to ask question or provide some comments, and we strongly encourage you to speak and use English as much as possible. This is your really good chance to practice, so your speaking abilities will not get rusty and all. So, okay, you may use the raise hand feature in the Zoom, or probably also try to type your questions in the chat box. So, I think we have one request from Pak Benny. Pak Benny, if you may. Um, deliver your
Yes,
yes, please, sir.
Gali, may I?
Yes, of course, you are very much welcome.
Yes, Mr. Benny.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, colleague, Custom and Excise English Club colleague. Very nice presentation, very comprehensive. This is the first chance for me to join with the club. Actually, uh, thank you for Mr. Chairwoman, Ms. Tunjung, for inviting me. Actually, at the fourth Inspirational talk, I would like to join, but at that time, the Pak Franz rescheduling, and then cancel the Inspirational talk. So this is the first chance for me to join with the club to other colleagues in CEEC. I'm Benny. I'm from headquarter, from officer from Directorate of International Public Affairs. Um, thank you, Pak Ozi. Pak Ozi in Batam now.
That's correct, Mr. Benny. Can I see your face? Don't be shy. Keep your face on the screen.
I'm sorry, I just before I'm on off because just finishing exercise at the headquarter. Actually, I just come back from the headquarter doing exercise with Pak Uco and other colleagues, and that's why in the beginning I'm not follow you, but for the rest of the presentation I can hear, and I think it's a good topic for discussion because I saw that some of you already raised some question in the last part of the presentation. But before that, is this the part of your research or something like your thesis or dissertation, Ozzy?
Yes, actually it is. I mean, it's just only a small part of my thesis. And just want to give a brief information about this concept, the trade facilitation concept. And but I put this concept in a different perspective because I got my PhD degree in law. So actually, all this topic, I mean, trade trade facilitation topic have been researched under the economic perspective. I think I took in different direction. Probably Mr. Dick is quite familiar as well with this topic.
Yeah, I would love to learn about TFA. I'm not an expertise in the TFA since my duties is not specifically or directly related with the WTO or TFA, but sometimes I read some paper and it's connection with the TFA. That's why I'm quite eagerly to hear more about the information about the TFA. But because I see also the TFA is very important. Indonesia play an important role in the TFA because you already mentioned in the beginning that this agreement is concluded in Bali in the ministerial meeting in Bali in 2013. So we know that in the WTO itself, there's no many agreement can be concluded since the negotiation is very tough. There's some block from the other members, and we know before the Doha Development Agenda, there's some negotiation round. We know that like Annecy round, Kennedy round, Tokyo round, Uruguay round, the last part before they established WTO. And since the establishment of the WTO until now, they are under Doha Development Agenda. There are only 3 agreements can be concluded, as long as I know. Then one is the TFA, and it's concluded in Indonesia in Bali. So I think Indonesia can show some yeah, we can be proud that it can be concluded in Indonesia. What I see, maybe you have my suggestion to explore further about the TFA agreement itself, about why Indonesia still have category B in several part of the provision. You already mentioned in Article 3 about advanced ruling, in Article 5.1, notification for enhanced control and inspection, and also Article 7.4. We have to understand that TFA is not only for custom, it's related with the implementation for all border agencies. Custom is one part of the TFA, but mostly of the provision is related with the custom. The implementation of the provision is related with the custom. But what about the 3 provisions that we are under category B, where we know how to implement that, who is responsible for the certain provision? WTO also provide national self-assessment guide. So from that document, I think we can see, we can elaborate, we can exercise who is responsible for certain provision. And if you can download it freely in the WTO website. The title is National Self-Assessment Guide. So in the document, you can see each article, they explain how to implement, how they can take it as a category A, as a category B, on category C. I'm forget if that is the, you already explained about the category A, category B, and C. Mean that category A, that's it's already entry into force when, or it's already implemented when it's entry into force. A category B need additional time for the implementation, and category C, they need some also capacity building and technical assistance. And Indonesia, 45, as you already mentioned, in category A, and only 3 in category B. And then when I check, not now, previously, when I check the 3 provision in category B, in Article 3 about advanced ruling, it mentioned about custom and other authorized agency, mean that it can be custom, but it's also can be another agency. But mostly, if we see the practice, the guideline from WTO, it's already mentioned about custom. And when we, as a custom officer, check this to determine the custom duties must be paid, it always related with the classification, custom valuation, and origin. So the Article 3, its obligation, it's connected with your question, who is responsible for the certain article. So Article 3 is, in my opinion, it's open for discussion, is become responsibility of custom. And the other article is Article 5.1. If you see in the assessment guide, it's mentioned about all border agencies. Mean that not only custom, but it can be a quarantine agency, food and drugs agency, Badan POM, and also Ministry of Trade and other agency. And usually in the assessment guide, they mentioning how the stage to implement it. They provide something like a legal framework, how you have to provide in like in your law, and they also provide like a procedure, and they also mentioning about the incidental provision. They mentioning also about the human resource, custom training, how you train the officer so they can comply with the obligation, and also the use of communication and information technology. In the assessment guide, they also mention. And when we exercise the Article 5.1, it's related with the food and beverage security. So it more or less is related with the Badan POM or Food and Drugs Agency in Indonesia. In case of custom, we don't have any additional enhanced notification for control of food. We already have a risk management, and it's also related with the Article 7.4 later. And that's about 5.1. The obligation is not for custom, because custom is already ready if we have to implement the Article 5.1. And then Article 7.4 about risk management. You may check the assessment guide. It mentioning about custom. And you can see the detail of the Article 7.4 one by one. It's all mentioning about what custom do in the custom control. And why Indonesia put the B category in this provision. Maybe actually Gali more knowing than me actually, because he is in charge about the sector. But as long as I know, it's because of the intention of our government of Indonesia to launch the Indonesia single risk management. Indonesia would like to attract another agency to have the same mechanism for control. But for custom, if we see, we can fulfill the requirement of the whole assessment guide. So actually the category 7.4 is A. If we can say honestly, in my opinion, right? It can open for discussion. Because I read the assessment guide mean that we already comply with the provision. But because Indonesia's strategy, they would like to attract like a quarantine agency to have the same mechanism for the risk management. So Indonesia put category B. Category B of Indonesia, the whole three category, is need additional time of 5 years. So if the TFA concluded in December, I forgot, in 2013, it adopted by General Assembly of WTO in 2014 and become entry into force in 22 February 2017, after 2/3 of the WTO members sent notification of the ratification. Now WTO have 164 members. So at the time when 110 members of WTO send the notification, so the agreement become enter into force from 22 February 2014. And what Indonesia B category is extended the implementation for 5 years. Means that in February 22, 2022, the whole article, the Indonesia commitment must be already in A, because Indonesia don't need some additional technical assistance with category C. So, in my opinion, the responsibility of custom from the whole three article is only for the advance ruling. Oh, I forgot. You also mentioning about the National Committee as mandated by the Article 23, because you already mentioned the TFA agreement is 24 article. The main agreement itself is 12 article. Article 1 until Article 12. It can divide it into 48 provision, but also some other WTO members, they can divide into 63, because the advance they can divide one by one, or some members, they also make the provision until 120 something. So each provision they made some detail. Is there already in A category, B category, or C category? And as mandated by the agreement, well, 12 article in the main agreement that should be implemented. And the Article 13 until 22 is special and differential treatment for LDC and developing country. And 23, 24 related with the national institutional provision and the final agreement. And mentioning about the National Committee of Trade Facilitation. Actually, because I heard you also mention about that ad hoc, actually, I have read that coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Menko Perekonomian, already have a decree, a decision in May 2018 that we already have National Committee of Trade Facilitation, Komite Nasional Fasilitasi Perdagangan. So Indonesia already have it in May 2018, where the Menko Perekonomian as the chair and Ministry of Finance is the vice chair second, and also Director General of Customs and Excise as vice chair of the daily pelaksana harian lah, apa itu namanya. And related with the provision itself, it's related with the members countries. Now, when I checked last time, from 184, only 9 countries not yet send their ratification. So almost 95% already send the ratification. Among that, 39 countries is developed countries. It should be known that for developed country, when their entry into force mean from 2017, they have to implement all the provision in category A. But for developing country and least developed country, they still have more time, additional time to add in category B or category C. And developing country itself in WTO is 89, I think, and least developed countries is around 36. So we can see later in 2022, it included Indonesia, some country who notify the ratification in category B, it should be already into force. And maybe I also like to check, you mentioning in the last part of your presentation, Indonesia sent their notification in December 2017, but actually when I saw the document, Indonesia sent the notification to WTO in June 2018. Mean actually Indonesia is not part of the 2/3 of the WTO members when it become entry into force, because Indonesia sent the notification in 2018 after the National Committee of Trade Facilitation established in May 2018. And correctly, in 2018, there are only 3, because in the previous notification in 2014, when Indonesia only sent 3 provision in category A. Remember, 2014, the category A is only 3. But in 2014, after the discussion in the National Committee, I saw in here some members, Pak Alfian and others also in charge with that issue, maybe more knowing about than me. And we only have 3. So answering your question on the last part for the discussion, in my opinion, it's not only the responsibility of custom. And if we already analyze, evaluate, or exercise the national assessment guide, the responsibility of Indonesia is only for the advanced ruling. The risk management custom is already compliant, and Indonesia actually can fulfill that. And Article 5.1 is become responsive of Badan POM. They also in the progress to moving forward to comply with that provision. So in advanced ruling, actually we can see Indonesia actually already implemented the provision. And why we still in category B? If you can check in the Article 3 about advanced ruling, it mentioning the obligation in WTFA, it should be related with the classification and origin. While in Indonesia, the implementation is for classification and custom valuation. PMK 198/2016 and Facilitation 38/2018, if I'm not mistaken. And it's also mentioned in our custom law in Article 17A. Only advanced ruling on classification in terms of PKSI, penetapan klasifikasi sebelum impor, and valuation in terms of the valuation advice. So the of India is to provide advanced ruling on origin. Why? How we move forward with that? It's also actually I have the question about the legal basis for the advancing on origin, because some people say that actually it should be in our custom law. But in my opinion, since this agreement is ratified by the law number 17, 2017, and it's also part of the Indonesian regulation, it's part of the Undang-Undang nomor 24, 2000 about international agreement. When we ratify the international agreement into law, undang-undang, and perpres, and it's already in the law, so it means that it can be implemented. So the next step is just to provide the legal basis in terms of the Peraturan Menteri Keuangan, National Ministry of Finance Regulation. And the other step that we have to provide is something like institutional provision. It can be decided like classification. It can be used in Directorate of Teknis Kepabeanan, Directorate of Custom, or maybe Directorate of International Affairs, International and Public Affairs, where they have some charge with the issue of the rules of origin. And also the issue about the IT, we can collaborate with the Directorate of Information, IKC, how we can share the information of the advanced ruling to our officer in the field, in the custom house, so they can use the data for their daily activities to check the classification, the valuation, and etc. So, to respond your question, the Indonesia responsibility or customer responsibility in this case is related with advanced ruling, but the other one is obligation of the other agency. And of course, we cannot let it the responsibility by itself. Because we already have a national committee, we can discuss together on that and how we can fulfill our commitment by the February 2022. Maybe that's from me, and I also open for discussion to hear from the other participant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak. Your discussion was very enriching. So, Pak Ozi, would you like to respond on the Pak Benny?
Yes. Thank you very much, Pak Denny, for your very clear information and also your comments. Very long, and also it gives us a lot of information about the practice of Indonesia on how to implement this agreement, because you are taking in charge of this agreement at the office, right? So you
No, I'm not in charge.
Oh, no, okay.
No, I'm not. You can ask Gali, actually. Gali and
yeah. I mean,
not me.
Okay, I would like to reply to your comments about our submission, our law, right? And law 17, 2017. Yeah, that's correct, because we submitted that deposit of instrument after all the members ratified this agreement, right? When it took into force. So it's quite late as well. That's correct, because we deposited that commitment to the WTO after the entry of force that agreement, and it's really, I mean, I also realized that we actually revised that notification to the WTO, because previously, as you said before, we only notified 3 articles under category A, right? And I think a year after that, we revised it, and then it's quite reverse. We only recognize that only 3 articles under category B, but all the articles are under category A. So I want to know the story behind that. I mean, you are correct, because there's a tools, we call it assessment tools, how we can recognize or how we can identify all the measures under the WTO, TFA, fulfill our situation. And that's I want to reply back. I want to know the story why we revise it, and then we change that decision from previously only 3 articles under category B, and then a year later we change it. We only notify all articles except 3 articles under category B, and what else? I mean, to reply. And I agree with that. I mean, how to implement it? Yeah, it comes in my mind. It comes into my mind how we can implement it. Because I have the expertise in the area of international trade. I mean, international law. We understand that in our system, in our law, we actually not law. I mean, in international best practice, we recognize 2 systems actually. We call it money system and dualist system. It means that even we have ratified this agreement, we cannot soon implement all the agreement, except we provide, we call it implementing regulation or implementing legislation. So all the ratified law under our system cannot be exercised, except if we provide another law that would extract or take all the measure into that law. We call it normative law. So this because it's only ratified law, I'm quite pessimistic that we can implement all the measure. Even some of the principles have been adapted into our national law. For example, like single window and everything in our custom law. But for the implementing legislation, we call it normative law. We should have it, so we cannot rely on ratified law that have been ratified by our government. It happens. I mean, this is talks about because it relates to how, for example, private actors can take a stand for the court only based on this ratified law. Not only this ratified, but another law. I mean, when we have international agreements or convention, we usually ratify it into our law, right? But that ratified law is not solely the main law that can be implemented in our domestic law. So it's quite complex actually. I mean, there's an argument about that from our international law scholar. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, if I may, I would like to add some of the comments on the question of the Article 7.4 on the risk management. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the actual ultimate goal was having, like as Pak Benny said, it was actually about the having the integrated single risk management. So that's why we put on the category B on that article. Yeah. So I think, and in terms of history, I think there was a lot of, if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot of misunderstanding on how the category A, B, and C should be put it like because if I'm not mistaken, some of the other government agencies said that if we put a lot of articles in category C, then we can get a lot of assistance. We can get a lot of capacity building, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So that was kind of the background history on why some of the category C in the previous assessment articles, on those articles. So yes, do you have any further comments before I read some of the other questions from other participants? Benny?
May I
Yeah, sure.
give a comment as well? I mean, yeah, I forgot to reply to Mr. Ben's comment. I mean, I agree with Mr. Ben that, yeah, actually, it's not only our works, right? I mean, I said that it's quite relevant to our works, but when we want to make the movement of goods faster at the border, we cannot. We are not the sole agency, like I said before. So we must consider other agency when want to get imported goods clearance at the border. So I agree with Ms. Denny. We are not the sole agency at the border. We should coordinate, but I mean, at least we can take more role in implementing this provision. Like yeah, we deal with the advanced ruling, but we're not dealing with like you said before, risk management system, because it needs integration of many agencies, because they must have the same perspective how they handle these goods. Yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the response. I think in relation with the ongoing discussion, Pak Alfian would like to add some more comments on this. Pak Alfian, please, if you could unmute yourself. And yes, hello,
Can
Pak
you hear
Alfian.
me? Terima kasih, Gary.
Yes, sir, of course.
Yeah. I think, thank you, Pak Oji. I think your presentation is very excellent, I think. So, yeah, we can, we know that we have other officer that very, very interesting about the WTA, TFA. But I know that I heard before that Pak Oji expert in WTO TFA. But if you don't mind, I can say that maybe you know much about WTO TFA, but you don't know much about what we have already done in Indonesia custom. So I can prepare to do your last slide regarding the three category that still left, the category B, patent ruling, risk management, and the other one is notification for, I don't know, something. You mentioned that the three category is responsible by custom. I think it's not true. I think Pak Benny already mentioned and very clear that there's not only custom there, but for advanced ruling, yes, I agree that that is responsible by custom. You know that in advanced ruling there are three article inside that advanced ruling: classification, custom valuation, and origin. For for classification, we know that we have already complied, and also custom valuation. We have already had the ministerial regulation or ministerial decree. But for origin, we're still preparing for that. And I can say that Pak Beni now is preparing for the origin for advanced ruling. But I believe that next year we have already complied for the advanced ruling, because in the next year we have we believe that we can finish the ministerial decree for the advanced ruling for origin. So for the advanced ruling, WTO will be completed next year. But the last two, like risk management and notification, maybe Pak Oji, you know, I know that you are now in Batam. Maybe you can see the port of Batam. At the port, not only custom there are like a quarantine. Quarantine also divided by three job by a different ministry, like from I don't know how to say it. Ministry that responsible for plant, animal, and the other thing, advisory, and also Pak Benny also mentioned regarding the Badan POM. They are not connected yet. Yes, we have like Indonesia single risk management, but in the last meeting, even though I not joined that meeting, not all ministries want to join that Indonesia single risk management. I can say like Ministry of Trade, the ministry that have many regulation that we have implemented at the port. But for quarantine, yeah, that's okay. They are like to join the risk management, also like Badan POM. But the other ministry, until now, I don't know what I know that they are not want to join yet. And that's why until now risk management is not compliant the whole. And the other one like the notification for notification for something
Shipment, notification for inspection. if I'm not mistaken, sir.
notification for, yeah, also there's not only custom there, also like a quarantine. Maybe we can say the quarantine would like to maybe we can say they can comply, but until now we don't know. We still not notify yet. Maybe I can explain a little bit about the what we have done in the custom. When we have only 3 category A in the 2014, also at that time in 2014 or 2015, we asked for the Ministry of Trade why they don't lead to make our category from 3 only and increase become maybe 48. But at that time they said that they are I don't know what can they should be responsible by National Committee on Trade Facilitation. But at that time there's still no NCTF yet, and they only want responsible for the ratification, preparing the ratification. And then at the time because we believe that we have budget, DKR have the budget for the like FGD, and then we initiate to start to implement or to try to make our only 3 category A to increase more than 3. And then we start from our internal FGD in, I remember that in Bogor office, custom office at the time. But only internal custom, because we know that almost all the measures related to the custom. In Bogor custom office, from 3 and then increase become 18. So at that time after FGD in Bogor, the category A become 18, and then we initiate again the meeting FGD in Purwakarta custom office, still internal custom, from 18 and then become 30 something, 38 I think. So that in after Purwakarta, the category A become 38. And then the last meeting we initiate, and then we invite 18 ministry to have meeting in one hotel in Casablanca. I don't remember the name of the hotel, and we invite all the ministers that related to the with WTO TFA, and the meeting led by Pak Robert and Bu Oja as a director of technique. At that time, the final result of the WTO TFA FGD just become 45 that we have already now. Only 3 left. Why 3 left? Because other ministries, they don't want, or we can say that they are not ready yet to become comply, become category A. That's why the 3 category or 3 measures still B, risk management, advanced ruling, and also notification something. For advanced ruling, at that time we recognize that even though all advanced ruling responsible by custom, we are not ready for origin, but now we are preparing for that. And the other 2, as I explained before, and also Pak Benny explained, still category B. But maybe we can, what the question or what we have will do now, what should we do with the last 2 category? Because this the measure to make it category should be responsible by the National Committee on Trade Facilitation that we have already have in Ministry of Perekonomian. But until now, I don't know what they do for preparing the last measure to become category A, because we have responsible that in the 2022 we have all our WTO TFS will be complied. I think that's what I can spend at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa Alfian, for your comments. Before I move on to the next comments, I think I would like to invite Pak Widya. Pak Widya, please add a little bit more comments before Pa Ozzy may respond to Pa Alfian and Pak Widya. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Kali. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Pak keynote speaker, Pak Ozzy, Alfian, Pak Benny, and other colleague of CEEC members. Thank you for the opportunity for me to. I would like to give just a little comments, not question. Thank you very much, Pak Ozzy, for the excellent presentation. It's very detailed, complete, very clear. And I also appreciate very much for your initiative to raise this issue to be discussed in the CEC. Thank you also to Madam President, Ms. Tanjung, to invite all of us here. Also, thank you very much for the explanation, confirmation, and information from Pak Alfian, Pak Benny. They are a WTO TFA expert, and they have been very much involved in a number of FTA negotiation, the free trade agreement negotiation. Because at the FTA negotiation, there is a specific chapter concerning the custom procedures and trade facilitation. And there is a special working group who discuss on the formulation of the chapter. The chapter containing in majority the implementation of WTA to boost implementation of the FTA. So in this regard, I would just like to highlight some points here that the trade facilitation nowadays become more and more important to be discussed, since it will reduce trade costs much more than the elimination of or the reduction of the tariff, import tariff. we are all aware that the WTO has been urging its members to eliminate the tariff barrier since the last 3 decades, maybe. But now we still realize that the import duties, although the import duties of almost the WTO member has been reduced or minimized. However, the traders still have to spend high cost for operational cost. That is because now almost every country in this world implement more non-tariff measures. Not tariff barrier is a little bit different. Maybe next time we have other opportunities to discuss non-tariff measures, and that is why the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement is formulated and initiated by the WTO. It's among others to address the non-tariff issues. And when we talk about the NTM, so it should have become the responsibility of the Ministry of Trade and all government agencies in the cross-border trade, including customs, of course. And Mr. Alfian and Mr. Benny also had already give a long explanation about the involvement of customs and how customs have been working very hard to implement the WTO TFA. But actually, if we only see the 48 element of WTO TFA, yes, it is majority in majority it's concerning customs. But if we break down the 48 articles, then there is a sub point, and it will show that there are more and more other government agencies involved should be responsible in the implementation. So if the question is how customs should increase its role to implement the WTFA, I think customs should urge what's the name, the National Implementation Committee, to work harder. And I don't think we should take over the responsibilities, but I think it's still the responsibility of the Ministry of Trade to make use of the National Committee. Maybe I would like to suggest Mr. Ozi to visit the Ministry of Trade and make some interview with some officials there, those who are responsibility of the WTFA, to get the bigger picture on how the National Committee will implement the WTFA. I think that's all for my comments for now, because I'm sorry I have to join the DKO meeting with my office.
Yes,
Much
very
Pak
important
Khalid,
meeting.
Pak
Thank you.
Ozi. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa Widya. Would you like to add further comments, Pa Ozi?
Yeah, to conclude, I agree with Mr. Widya and Pak Alfian and Pak Beni. Like I said, I highlight again, I mean, I just want to anticipate that that we are not the scapegoat when the burdensome and everything happen at the border. I mean, I also mentioned that we consider Article 53 of our law that we should listen to other, consider to other regulation. That's why, I mean, I just want to encourage that other institution among us, I mean, like Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Fisheries, and Ministry, other agency at the border, that we can cooperate, because it's really happened a lot. I mean, when there's something wrong at the border, when they cleanse after the border, we are the only scapegoat. That's why I want to encourage that we can take more control. I mean, to take more role, how we can approach to this agency. We also understand that probably we are the I know probably Bapak Dini can correct me, that we are this sole agency that we have a good infrastructure, a good human resources and IT as well, compared to other agency at the border, because we realize that they are at least 18, 20 agencies at the border to get the same purpose, I mean, the same interest when that imported goods want to be cleared at the border. So sometimes when there's a stuck at the border, we are the scapegoat. That's why, I mean, we should take more control. We must take more, we must encourage other agency to cooperate with us, in my perspective, of course, my opinion. So when all the goods get faster at the border, we get the credit for that. That's my conclusion, I think.
Thank you very much for your comments, Pak Ozi. So further, I would like to invite Pak Aryo Seno, if you would like to deliver your questions yourself or comments, Pak Aryo. Pak Aryo Seno from STAN. Yes, please unmute yourself, sir.
Okay.
Okay, please go on.
Oh, please go on. Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Ozi and all of the participants. I'm so glad that I can join this event, especially for the topic that I really interested is related with trade facilitation. Actually, for my opinion, I asked in the slide is about the cost. I mean, for applying trade facilitation there is a cost maybe. There is time and time consuming and money also to apply the trade facilitation. And on the other hand, what we can get from this cost? I mean, for 1 rupiah that we spend for this trade facilitation, what certain rupiah that we will reap for this? I mean, if I spend 100, I will get 200. Or maybe I just spend 100 and nothing that we can get. I mean, for the Brexit experience and also the US experience now, they now increase the tariff. For the Brexit experience, they said that it's not. I mean, there is no. Gain advantage for joining the AU, and then they out from the AU. Maybe that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question, Pak Aryo. Pak Ozi, if you may.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Aryo. I mean, there's a tendency that in worldwide right now, there's a tendency of protectionism in many countries, right? They want to protect the country from from import goods coming into the country by raising tariff and non-tariff, like we just said, major, or some people say barriers like that, because they want to, of course, to speed up their industry, their domestic industry. So if all the goods coming into the countries, this domestic industry cannot compete with imported goods at the border. That's the basic principle. It happens worldwide. I mean, that's why it's very normal for every country to protect their country by raising tariff and etc. And another question about can you repeat the question again about the cost?
There is the cost. I mean, for the benefit and cost analysis. What benefit that we can get from the trade facilitation compared to the cost to implement? Is it greater benefit or lesser?
Okay, I mean, I'm not too expert in answering your question because it really relates to economic perspective. But I read some articles based from economic perspective. It say that when we implement all these measures in one country, of course, we can increase trade efficiency and reduce unnecessary trade costs. They have their own calculation how to measure that. So yes, just trust on that article. I think I'm not. It's been researched from economic perspective, and they suggest the same thing. I mean, if we can implement this measure, of course, we can get more benefit for government and also traders, and we can increase trade efficiency. That's the conclusion, I think. Yeah, does it answer the question, probably, Mr.
Okay,
Aryo?
thank you.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Okay, Pak
May
Benny.
I add some information related with
yes.
Aruseno question? Because yeah, I've heard some papers about the research from WTO and OECD, and I think it's related with the question of Aruseno. Actually, Pak Ozi already mentioned some benefit that if we Indonesia implement the TFA in several aspects in the presentation, but in qualitatively, but in quantitatively, based on the research of the WTO and OECD, I have read if the ideal condition of the international trade can be done by the implementation of all the TFA provision. They said that based on the research, if I'm not mistaken, that the trade costs, the global trade costs will be decreasing into 13.2% until 15.5%, where the reducing of 1% of costs can increasing the income of the whole world more than 40 billion US dollar, and almost 2/3 it will be goes to the developing countries. I mean, not to developed country or the, but it based on the research. On the other research, if I'm not mistaken, about the figure, WTO also said about the export from the developing countries will be developed by 13.8% until 22.3% with various goods traded among countries. Mean that we see that if we improve the service, the pelayanan to our stakeholder with the facilitation that we provide, as already mentioned by Pak Ozi in the presentation, it can be efficient and actively the economy. It will benefit for the economy. That's some figure and data that I find in some research in the OECD and WTO. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
We
Mr.
can answer question, Pak Ari.
Yes, thank you very much for your information, Mr. Bedi. Yes, there's also like a research conducted by the WTO, if I'm mistaken, 2016, right? They give more focus on these, the WTO TFA, particularly trade facilitation. They analyze from different perspective, economic perspective, and they, yeah, thank you, Mr. Benny, for your information. And also, I would like to say some information as well concerning the implementation of WTFA. There's also an article saying that there's an argument actually saying that when developing country try to make all the imported goods at the border, easier for private actors, it's also for the benefit of developed countries, because they want to have all the goods coming into different countries quite cheaper and also faster. That's why they encourage developing countries to make many improvements, to make many particularly customs and also government agency at the border, because they also have their own interests, how they can get their goods coming into important countries, and then yes, they can sell their products. That's the one argument, and that's why I think I'm not. It's based from the political perspective. I'm not sure, but there's some argument about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pa Ozzy, for the response. I think we are down to 11 o'clock, and it should be the end. But if I may raise one of the question delivered in the chat box, it's from Bu Tias. It's actually not technically related with the topic, but it's actually related with the current situation of COVID-19. So I think it would be fair for us to share a little bit on how is the situation or the workplace due to the COVID-19, especially in Jakarta. We have already tried to implement the another PSBB. So yeah, that's one question. So I would like to. I think this question may be delivered to other participants, not only Pa Ozzy. So if there any comments to answer this question, actually, if I may say, in Directorate of KIAL itself, we have already limit ourselves to work from office rather than work from, yeah, we limit ourselves to work from office, and we mostly done of our jobs in work from home. So what about others? I would like to invite all participants or Pak Ozzy, or how's your condition in Batam, Pak?
Yeah, Gali.
Yes, in relation. Yeah.
During this pandemic time, the COVID-19 in Batam.
Yep.
You're saying that, yeah. I mean, in Batam, the situation is quite rising as well. The same situation happened in Jakarta, because probably we read on newspaper that Jakarta will apply, the governor of Jakarta will apply PCB again, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
I don't know, because probably tomorrow I will go back to Jakarta to my office, to home base. Probably I'm not sure if I'll get stuck in Jakarta or not. Let's see again.
Stay safe and stay healthy, sir.
I will fly back to Jakarta to visit my family. But if there is, hopefully this pandemic will be over, and then we're praying that we can get our life back again, and then we can do our life in a normal way, not a new normal, but a normal way. Okay, I think we are 15 minutes more than our schedule. I think
yes,
45
we are
minutes.
More than our
Do
schedule.
we have any question already?
If we don't have any further questions, I would like to close the discussion today. No? Okay. So further, I would like to invite all of the participants to turn on their video on, and we will do the photograph session. It should be conducted earlier, but I forgot that it should be conducted. Okay, so kindly on the video so I can see your beautiful faces, and we'll take a nice picture of today's discussion participants. I can see Makarti from Yogyakarta. Hello. Others? Pak Halim, oh, you are looking very handsome, sir, today, sir. Only today. Okay, others? Can you turn on your video? And I will count 1, 2, 3 to take the picture with my phone and with the print screen. Okay, so wait. Everyone is still trying to get their video on. Halo Pak Doni from Jember, apa kabar?
Fine, Mr. Gali. Hi.
Long time no run together, yeah. Okay, so if everybody's ready, I will count to 1, 2, 3, and Mas Didi, if you could take the picture with the print screen, and I will take the photos from my phone. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Again, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, second page. 1, 2, and 3. Another one, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Thank you very much for your active participation. So right now, if I may,
thank you very much all.
Close. I will give it back to Brian to wrap it all. Yes, Brian, please take over the virtual floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Mas Gali. Thank you so much, Pak Ozi, for the comprehensive presentation in this morning to this afternoon. And so, seniors and colleagues, that's all our inspirational talks today. And we also thank you for your participation, for your comments, for your question, and another. And we also would want to invite you for the next inspirational talks in the 11 inspirational talks in the next week. We will inform you. That the next inspirational talks gonna be with Belgian customs, and if you want to join the next inspirational talks, just follow the information from us in the WhatsApp group or in the. Yeah, thank you, Mas Didit.
Okay. So this is Eddie Van Kuiper. Okay.
Yeah, with Mr. Eddie the Cooper.
Eddie the
I don't know
Cooper.
how to spell it, but Eddie the Cooper, customs consular at the Embassy of Belgium in Indonesia. It's gonna be our next inspirational talks, so don't miss it, and we will inform you. Then for the next inspirational talks. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. See
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Bye.
sharing and discussion,
Thank you, Pak
Ozzy
Benny.
and
Thank you,
colleague.
Pak Seno.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. How are you, Bang Benny?
Benny.
Thank you.
Jan, Halim.
Sekali, makasih ya. Thank
Siap,
you.
Dan.
I'll see you next week.
Terima kasih Mas Gadi.
Thank you.